So we see lots of people with anxiety and depression, so mood disruptions, but also people who have chronic pain, headaches, irritable bowel. And I think Western medicine is very good at cutting the body up into little pieces. You know, if you have a digestive problem, you go see a gastroenterologist. If you have a headache, you go see a neurologist. And I don't think they're very good at looking at the whole piece of things. When I think you understand what's going on with the nervous system, then all of these symptoms make sense. Oh, this is related to this, and this is why, when I feel anxious, of course my digestion's upset. And of course, people who come with sleep disorders, who no one's ever really talked to them about, well, if you're anxious, of course you can't sleep. I mean, if we could sleep when we were scared, we would be eaten. We never would have survived as a species. And so having that sort of evolutionary basis to explain things to people, and also just I'm often saying to people, don't get in a fight with your nervous system because you're going to lose. Your nervous system is way more powerful. So what you really need to do is understand it, make sense of it, and let's work with it. And it's trying its best to kind of protect you. And I think it's an interesting concept for people that they have these symptoms that they really want to get rid of, that they're in a struggle with, that obviously interferes with their life in ways that are difficult. But if we can talk about, okay, so your nervous system's really just trying to protect you. It's getting a faulty message, but it's still trying to protect you, and it's trying to do a really good job. So instead of being angry or frustrated or disappointed with it and feeling like there's something wrong with you, what if we look at the messages that we're giving it? What if we change the way we think about these things and try to find ways of calming your nervous system? Because if you do that, if you coax your nervous system along, if you're gentle and understanding and compassionate with it, it'll work with you. I mean, it wants to. Our nervous systems want to regulate better. What we do is try and give it the information to do that and take it out of this medical model, this psychiatric model. When people come in, this is my diagnosis. That's not the most interesting thing to me what someone's diagnosis is. I want to know what their life is like, what their symptoms are like. What do they struggle with? Is it difficult to get out of bed? Do they feel dysregulated when they get upset? Are they sort of being yanked around by their emotions or their anger or their fear? Those things are really important to me. What are the things that are getting in the way of them being better regulated? Because what we understand now is that mental health and wellness is all about being better regulated. And, we live in a world that in lots of ways doesn't support good regulation. It's overwhelming, it's overstimulating, there's a lot for us to cope with. There's a lot of cognitive load and a lot of disruption and a lot of noise and a lot of people have had scary things happen to them. So being able to talk about trauma with people. I've had lots of clients who've been, through lots of different therapists and said, nobody ever talked to me about trauma. People were happy to give me a diagnosis. Nobody ever looked at how that made sense. So I think that's something that's really important to me. And that's, it's so rewarding to work with people in this way because it's such a healthy way of looking at things. It's such a positive kind of model. So I don't feel like I'm steeped in this psychiatric kind of negative diagnostic. It just isn't useful, And to be able to help people step aside from that, people talk about having these interviews with psychiatrists for an hour and they walk away with 3 diagnoses. And of course they go home and Google it and they feel awful. It's bleak and it's terrible and, there's nothing that's helpful about that. And, when you speak to people like that, when you talk about, let's put the diagnosis aside, if you come with, obviously borderline is one of those ones that's very popular now, especially for women. All that means to me is that you're dysregulated, right? So what are the symptoms of your dysregulation? How's it getting in the way for you? How would you like things to be better? How would you like to be less at the mercy of your emotions? Because that's no good for anybody, right? That's a very difficult way to live. And neurofeedback is one of those things that's really helpful. The Safe and Sound program is helpful. But even just the piece of the psychoed and explaining to people, that's a narrative shift, and that really makes a difference. And that's an exciting thing, to sit with someone and see them kind of make that shift, um, that's kind of a really cool thing to watch. And that never gets old.